Welcome to the Sports Business Classroom audio experience. My name is Riley Sager, and I'll be taking you along with me as I hear from some of the most influential people from all angles of the business of sports. This series guests each bring something unique to the table, from player scouting and analytics to media and broadcast, and I can't wait for you to learn how to invest in yourself while expanding your knowledge, experience, and network in basketball. Today's guest is SBC Instructor and podcast host Steve Jones Jr. Steve is the son of basketball legend Steve Snapper Jones and has been surrounded by basketball his entire life. For college, Steve played basketball at Arizona State from 2005 to 2008 and then transferred to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, where he played until 2010. From there, Steve got his first step into the sports industry with the Memphis Grizzlies in a video coordinator position, where he gained a lot of experience, eventually reaching head video coordinator. From Memphis, Steve then moved on to a position with the Brooklyn Nets as an assistant coach. Fast forward to today, Steve is now the host of the Dunker Spot podcast, where he talks all things basketball with co-host Nekias Duncan. I'm so excited for you all to tune in to today's episode, especially if you're considering attending the 2024 Business of Basketball Immersive Experience in Las Vegas. Steven shares a lot of great insights, and this episode will benefit anyone looking to pursue a career in sports. All right, Steve, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to learn more about you, how you got involved in sports, and your upcoming involvement with SBC. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, feeling good, feeling great, happy to be here, and excited to just talk it out and have some fun.
Yeah, me too. Okay, let's get into it. Start with your background. I know you grew up around sports with your dad, but tell us how you got involved. Was your primary focus or interest basketball, or did you just kind of try everything as a kid?
Well, obviously with my dad, he knew a lot about basketball. I watched a lot of basketball. He would always bring back tapes, the old NBA entertainment tapes, and I would watch them in the VHS, and obviously I'd watch on TV and everything. As a kid, I liked playing at recess. So soccer, I'd like to play. Foursquare, I liked to play. It was one of those deals, though, where my dad never pushed basketball onto me. He always just wanted me to find my way and enjoy what I enjoyed. So, I would just shoot in the background. The backyard, and just shoot all the time, get shots up, do the whole buzzer beater, get fouled, go to overtime for the 8th time type deal. And then it was 5th or 6th grade where I got pretty serious. And he was like, do you actually want to play? And I was like, yeah, I think I want to play. So, he took me under his wing, taught me a whole bunch of things. I wasn't big into a bunch of other sports. I grew up in Oregon, so I had the body of a football player, but not the desire to be outside in the rain.
That's fair. Yeah. What about basketball was so captivating for you?
I think it was just the competitive aspect, the teamwork that goes into basketball. You're all going towards one goal. You're all trying to accomplish the same mission, but you need each other on both ends of the floor. We're all playing offense. We're all playing defense. We're all getting after it. The fact that it's just so start and stop, ball movement I always loved. I love playing defense and just really making people uncomfortable on that end. So that's what just drew it to me. It's just an exciting, fun sport. I just think when it's played at the highest level, it's so beautiful.
Did you have a specific defensive player that, was your idol, or either a favorite team or just someone that you really looked up to that played like you?
Oh, well, when I grew up, I was a Portland Trailblazers fan because I was from Portland. There wasn't another team there, so that was who I loved. It was really awkward when I was 5 and the Bulls played the Blazers in the finals because Michael Jordan was my favorite player. So a favorite story is I was told, my mom was like, the Bulls won and then you started crying. But you were also smiling, so it was in between.
Right.
But it was more, I loved Michael Jordan. Loved Allen Iverson. I loved Kobe Bryant. My favorite player growing up was Rasheed Wallace.
Okay.
And it's very odd. Obviously he was a Blazer, but I was drawn to post-ups because I would play one-on-one with some of my friends and they were taller than me. And he always had this great one-legged fadeaway. And I just would try and master that because, they were taller than me. I couldn't drive and shoot over them. But if I got that down, then we're good to go. So it was just more like picking little stuff up from people.
Yeah, just having fun with it, watching the players. What did basketball teach you? I mean, as a young kid, sports are so important in leadership and, dedication. But what do you think was the biggest thing for you?
Basketball taught me a whole bunch of life lessons, even throughout each level as a kid in high school, college. It's one of those things where you understand discipline, you understand teamwork, you understand hard work and effort and how that can pay off and how sometimes it can't pay off. You may give your best every single ounce that you got and you may come up short. How do you bounce back from it? So just the resilience you get from playing basketball, the inspiration you get from being around your teammates and kind of having that shared experience and going through those battles, that's kind of the stuff that drew me to the game. And those are the kind of payoffs for me when you can see a team go through a journey and go through adversity and work hard in practice and, see it pay off in games. And obviously you want to win a championship, but that's always been the fun part for me. We're a team, we're a unit, we're going to get this done.
Growing up with that resilience and just kind of testing your boundaries, seeing what you're capable of, how did you know you wanted to play in college and at Arizona State?
It was always a goal of mine. I was always someone who had a little incy-wincy bit of self-doubt, in all honesty. I didn't care about what I did. I just wanted to make sure the team won. And
right.
I was always selfless in that way. I didn't think I had to score the most points. I just wanted to, hey, let me move the ball, let me defend, let's do whatever it takes for us to win that night. And so it was one of those things that was a dream, but as I kind of improved and got better, like I had an odd path. Like I made varsity junior year, swung back down after being the sixth man, and then came back to varsity senior year and started. So it was just like, well, I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to give it all I got. We're going to see where it goes. We went in state championship. Sorry, Kevin Love. And once I kind of realized I was pretty good after that state tournament, it was one of those deals where we're like, oh, I could actually do this. And then I was able to go down to Arizona State. They let me play. If you want a funny story, my first year there, I didn't think I was actually on the team. Like there was a day where they brought the jerseys out and I didn't want to go in the locker room because like, oh, well, I'm going to find out I'm not actually on the team. And then, nope, there it was. White, Jones, 23. And I was like, oh, all right.
Okay, this is real. 23, my lucky number. Is that because of Jordan?
Yes. It was always a Mike deal. But it was always, it was one of those checkmark dream box things because my dad played at the University of Oregon. So it was cool for me to play in what was the Pac-10 back then, which is now the Pac-12, which is now the Pac-2. But that was kind of what I was chasing at that point in time.
It's interesting you talk about that self-doubt because I don't think a lot of people touch on it enough. And, growing up and you have all these pressures of like, okay, what do I want to do in college? Do I want to play professionally? Like, how did you overcome that self-doubt? And what would you tell people now who are dealing with that same thing?
The biggest thing that happened is probably in high school, my dad pulled me to the side because he saw me going through those struggles of trying to figure out how good was I, doubting myself, pushing myself too hard, being hard on myself. And he was like, look, everyone has their own path in life. Everyone has their own journey. Everyone's going to go through the same things. There are going to be people that are ranked XYZ right now that might never actually play in college. And there will be people that you never heard of that go on as far as possible. So you just have to take what you can do, control what you can control, work, put the work in every single day, and you have to believe in yourself. And that would be the advice I would give to people. We're human, so you're going to have these moments where it's tough and you doubt yourself. Adversity comes, but you have to believe in what you do because you're there for a reason. It's not by accident. You've put the work in, whatever the spot is, you've earned that position, and you have to have that belief because there's going to be moments where you fall short. But because you put that work in, because you're in that spot, you're going to be able to bounce back. But if it doesn't come from within, how long is it going to last?
So is that something that has just kind of stuck with you? Like it has to come from the inside. You have to have the internal drive?
Yeah. It's stuck with me my whole life. Now, it's something I've worked on. It's a lot of years, so it's not like it's just like an automatic deal. You got to process and put the work in. But yes, if you have that internal belief and that internal validation, everything else is going to be a bonus because you're going to know what you can do. You're going to know you're going to be the best at whatever it is. If you want to study the salary cap and you put all the work in, I know everything about this. No one can tell me different. And that's going to show in your work, as opposed to feeling like you need to take a shortcut or anything like that. Okay, that might get you somewhere, but eventually you got to walk the walk. And that's kind of where, if you don't have that in here, you put yourself in a tough spot.
Yeah, I don't know who said this quote, but just defining self-discipline is keeping promises to yourself, and just showing up for yourself, having those goals and fulfilling them, just day by day. So you're at Arizona State for a few years, and then you transferred to UNLV, correct?
Yes.
In 2008?
Yeah.
Why did you transfer?
I loved Arizona State. And so the last year I was at Arizona State, it was James Harden's freshman year. And so obviously he was on the rise. He was playing very well. And a great teammate, loved playing there, loved everything about it. I wanted my story to end in a different way, because I just kind of knew I could stay here. I'm probably not going to play. Senior night, I'll wave, and that'll be it. And in my head, I was like, I only get one chance at this. And that's always been kind of my mindset. I get one shot at this. I want to make sure I go out with everything out on the table. And so I was lucky enough to be able to go to UNLV and play for Coach Lon Kruger, the legend. And he literally sat me down. He's like, hey, we need you to work hard in practice. We need you to lead the scout team. We need you to get them grades up. Playing time, not guaranteed, but you do what you do. There's always a chance. That's all I needed. I just wanted to have a purpose. I just wanted to contribute and feel like I was involved in helping the team. And I hope I did. I mean, I think they voted me for most inspirational player when I redshirted, which I thought was weird, because I was like, I didn't play, but thanks. But yeah, having that purpose and that redshirt year was so important for me personally, just to be able to play and fall back in love with basketball and know I was helping the team in different ways, and studying whatever team I was supposed to be in charge of. If it was Air Force and I had to do all the Princeton offense stuff, I was going to know everything I could. I was going to push them. I was going to annoy them. They were going to get mad at me for working very hard, but that's what I was going to bring every single day. And then I just carried that mindset over. And the playing time came senior year.
It paid off. So you had that platform of basketball to kind of fulfill out that purpose. But when you graduated, how did that purpose change? Were you lost and you just wanted to see what became your new purpose? Or did you have something in mind? You're like, okay, this is what I want to do.
I wanted to work in basketball. I quickly realized how difficult it is to work in basketball. And so I had the vision and the mindset and the dream. I had the confidence, but then the opportunities weren't there. And I was like, wait a minute, what's going on? This was not part of the plan. But that's part of life. You have to be able to adjust. Like I in my head at that time, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going here. I'm going to do this. None of it happened. Nothing happened. A couple interviews, didn't go anywhere. Then lockout, and it was just like, well, this might be it. And that's a tough thing to deal with, because as many lessons that basketball teaches you about the real world, you still have to go into the real world. And all the things you learn as far as leadership and being a great teammate and work ethic, it applies to almost anything. That's one thing I learned, but you don't know that at that time. You're just like, well, I guess I'm done.
Yeah, later on in life, you can look back and be like, okay, I see how these pieces played in. So walk us through the mindset of freshly graduated Steve. What were you thinking? Those opportunities weren't coming. You didn't seem like you were in the place you thought you'd be. How did you deal with that? And then how did you get that first opportunity?
Oh, well, I tried to stay in touch with as many people as I could that I had contacts with at first, but it was like, well, let's try and enjoy the time that we have, as far as like maybe a gap, or maybe, understanding, exploring what you might want to do, and just exploring who I was as a person and what I wanted to accomplish going forward and how I wanted to get it done. And it's actually funny, because I started working front desk at the Wynn, because I was like, well, I guess it's just not going to happen. So let's just go ahead and pivot. Let's go get a job. Let's do that XYZ. Then the lockout happened, and the lockout ended, and then Coach Hollins was like, hey, we have an opportunity in Memphis. And so I boogied like a week or two later, and I was right there, thrown right into the mix. Like, I think I got there like 2 or 3 weeks before the season started because it was a late start. So I was thrown right into the fire.
Yeah, no hesitation. You just kind of jumped into it. What would you tell people who have their goals, they know what they want to do, but are scared to make that first jump?
Well, I would always caution, make sure you have like your ducks in a row. So you don't want to just put yourself in a terrible position, but believe in that dream. Don't let the doubt hold you back, because the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to realize, okay, that wasn't for me, or maybe I wasn't as good at that as it could be. But even if that's the scenario, you got an experience out of that. You learned something from that, and you're going to gain experience from that. The flip side is you won't have to walk through the rest of life wondering, what if? Why didn't I do that? I could have done that. So I always say, if you can, swing for the fences. Believe in yourself, go for it, and you'll be surprised at what pays off, because you don't know what you can achieve and what you can do until you go try.
Right. You have to put yourself out there, you know. You never know what to expect, what's going to come up, who you're even going to meet. But that's crazy that you were thrown in right before the season. Was it scary, or were you just like filled with adrenaline and excitement?
It was very scary. It was very scary. A lot of adrenaline, but a lot of fear. I'm learning, like, how am I here? Why am I here? Can I do this? Self-doubt, imposter syndrome. Oh, wait, I have to learn how to do my job. I have to learn all this new video software, learn the responsibilities, make sure we're good to go. And then you look up, we start training camp, and I'm filming it. And I'm like, oh, I used to play, and now I'm filming practice, which, you know, I don't have a big ego or anything like that. But I laughed. I was like, oh, this is interesting. And now making sure all the coaches are taken care of, getting out of the way of the players, but also understanding I need to know my stuff in case they ask me a question. That was probably the biggest one for me. I remember there was like an early practice. It was like my first day down on the floor, and we were running like 5-on-0 in the half court, just running through sets. And a player had gone to the training room real quick, and they came back out. And they're like, hey, what are we running? And I was like, you talking to me? And I was like, hey, yeah, this is what we're running. This is what you got to do. He's like, you better be right. I'm never asking you anything again. I was like,
were you right?
I was right.
Okay.
Right. But at the same time, I was like, oh, that's the mindset I have to have. I may not be the most important technically, but I need to know everything I can to earn the respect, to let them know, no, I'm here for a reason.
Right. Like, you're not the one running the plays, you're not on the court, but that's your position of video coordinator. It's such an integral part of how these players can do what they do, you know? And so what was your day-to-day routine like? Obviously a lot of preparation, not just doing your own job, but knowing what's going on with everyone else.
It's a lot of preparation. It's a lot of to-do lists. It's a lot of prioritization of what you're doing. You know, I mean, so going back in my head, trying to travel back in time, making sure everything we needed for that day for us was done. So let's say we had played the night before, all of our games broken down, all of our offensive edits and defensive edits are done. If we have an opponent the next day, is all their stuff done? But then, hey, I got the next 5 teams on the board. I'm working on all of those as well. If someone pops in and says, hey, can I get all these post-ups from Dwight Howard? Well, that slides up to the top of the list. Then now you get that done. And then, hey, can I get this game? Or can I get this breakdown? You're just basically taking orders to a degree. But it's a lot of watching tape, breaking down tape, editing tape, putting things together, different pick and rolls, different offensive sets, different defensive sets. And then you just do it again, over and over again. If we're playing at night, break down the game, and you just keep going.
Yeah, very detailed job. You have to know the basics of what you're dealing with, who you're playing, just because, I mean, it builds so much on each other and the work. Was organization something that you'd always been good at, or was there a skill you kind of struggled with at first? Organization,
loosely based, no. But logistics, I was always strong at. It's like organization-wise, I could get a little sloppy, but I knew where everything was. It just didn't look great. Logistically, I can get a plan, and I can get things firing, and hey, if we're doing this, this, and that, this is done. In case someone needs this needs to be done by this day. I was really good at that part. And so, especially because of the timing, and once you start traveling, you need to have X, Y, and Z done. I need to have these sets of scouting reports with me when I travel. This has to be done. Did we get the advanced scout from the scout? Okay, that's done. Do the coaches have everything they need? Do the players have everything they need? So you get into a rhythm, or like logistically, to where it becomes a machine to a degree. And once you have the logistics, you just be able to pop it out. The biggest thing is just making sure you stay focused and on task and understand the different parts of each job. Because at the same time that you're helping to prepare for your next opponent, you have to look at, okay, what are they doing? When are they doing it? What are we going to do about it? How does it affect us? So in that team atmosphere. And so it's this very weird dynamic of being all the way locked into what your team is doing, looking out into the future, but still being locked in on what your team is doing.
So you were with the Grizzlies for a few years doing that, video coordinator, and then moved up to head video coordinator. In that position, when you first got to Memphis, did you see a trajectory of what you wanted your career to be, or were you just in this position, you're like, I'm going to do this as well as I can?
I have always had the mindset that whatever you ask me to do or whatever I'm doing, I'm going to try and be the best in the world at that. And so I'm going to be the best in the world at this. And whatever doors that opens, we will see when that is. But this is my job, and I'm gonna knock it out of the park. Obviously, I knew there was a trajectory. You know, if you're in the video room, you could go to the front office. You could go into coaching. There's different pathways there if you put the work in. But I've always been of the mindset to be in the present and be in the moment and be the best that I can be right now. And I need to hone my craft. So there's no holes in our game. This whole part of our operation is taken care of. And I let the rest be what it be.
And you did go into coaching. You moved to the Brooklyn Nets. What kind of prompted that change? Was it something that you just felt was natural for your career, or were you kind of taking a risk on the coaching side?
I was taking a risk because when I first went to Brooklyn, it was like a lateral move with no promises of anything else. But going back to what I said earlier, I didn't want it to take one shot to see if I could do it. Because I had current Memphis Hustle head coach Jason March. He was with me the first 2 years in the video room. And so that last year I was able to be at the top, but I wanted to see, could I branch out on my own? How good was I by myself? How far could I take it? Was mainly my mindset. It was not an easy decision because I loved Memphis. We had great players. We were a great team. But I wanted to push myself as far as I could because you only get one shot at things in my head.
Talk about that change. When you first got to Brooklyn, obviously different positions, coaching versus video coordinator. But aside from your actual job, what was different for you? Like, what skills had you acquired in your past experience that set you up to be able to do this?
It was probably a combination of everything because having played, you have an understanding. When you go in the video room, you get a much stronger understanding of the NBA game and the NBA players and what they need and how to communicate with them. And one of the biggest things that I was lucky enough to do while I was in that video position was be able to handle some game plans, be able to handle some scouts, walk the team through some sets during shoot-arounds, which helped me find my voice, which was the most important thing. And if you find your voice, now you know how to communicate in different ways. Now you know what players need, what kind of, not just film, but what are they looking for on the court? What kind of feedback are they looking for? How do they like to be spoken to in that manner? And then that helps with the coaching part to where you're able to build relationships. And so that to me was the biggest part. I learned how to build relationships. I learned how to work hard in the film room. I knew all the sets. I had experience. So now it's time to take all that and go.
Yeah, it's very intertwined from personal relationships, like you said, logistics, just the details, stats, all of it. but you mentioned finding your voice. So speaking of that, you have a podcast, sports podcast, Dunker Spot. So tell us about how you got involved in that.
Well, it's me and Nekias Duncan, and I post Nets deal. I was kind of back in that same spot. Like, what do I do? And so the thing for me was, and just tying it back to history, like I was fluent in French at one point in life until I went to college and didn't know I took the highest French class I could take. And then they were like, hey, we don't have anything left for you. So I stopped speaking it. And so I could still read it. I could still understand it, but I can't speak it like I could. And I didn't want that to happen with basketball because I gained so much knowledge. So I was like, well, let's see what I can do. I'm going to watch these games anyways. And so I figured out, okay, let me share stuff on social media. And then that turned into him reaching out and be like, hey, do you want to do a podcast? And back to what I said about you only get one shot at this. I was like, sure. Yeah, let's do it. He was actually expecting a no. And I was like, yeah, I'm in.
Why not? So what year did you start that?
3 years ago now, 2021.
3. Okay. 2021. 3 years. I mean, first, congrats. You know, most people, I feel like now just want to start a podcast just to say they have a podcast, you know, but you're talking about sports. You know what you're doing. You know what you're talking about. What was your vision for the podcast? You know, was there a specific message that you wanted each episode to touch on, or was it just kind of information for listeners? Like, what were you trying to do with it?
I wanted to talk about basketball, but I wanted to talk about basketball in a different way that wasn't just takes and yelling and screaming and the same 3 or 4 teams. Like, I love basketball, and I wanted to have a platform to enjoy basketball and for people who enjoy basketball to listen to. And maybe you didn't know anything about the Orlando Magic, but hey, here's this cool thing they did. Or, hey, you're thinking about, why are the Clippers good? Well, let's break it down. Let's talk about what makes them good. What potential pitfalls, but what makes them good. My thing is the game is always going to be the story. It's always going to tell it. You know, we can have thoughts, opinions, but there's going to be a winner, there's going to be a loser. And I want people to know why it ended up that way. And so my biggest thing is, like, I don't want to change your mindset. I don't want to make you not get into the same MVP argument. If I can just give you one thing that you learned and make you laugh one time, I did my job. I just want to sit in the back of your brain. Dang, Nikola Jokic is better defensively. Now you see it 5 days later. Or, hey, the Clippers started out 0-5 after the James Harden trade. What's going on? What are they doing? Oh, they are playing better now. What? Who said that? That kind of thing was the vision for me, to where I want to make something that sticks with you a little bit and helps you enjoy the game and helps you laugh a little bit.
Yeah, just kind of giving the viewer or listeners a different perspective. I feel like a lot of times when we hear either a phrase or learn about a player we didn't know before, it's like suddenly we see it everywhere. So, you know, just having a podcast like that and making people aware, it helps them see the game completely differently.
That's my hope. That's my goal. I hope someone learns from it. You know, I'm always tunnel vision focused. Shout out to athletics for that. But, you know, I think we've made the world a little bit better.
What about podcasting was surprising to you? I mean, it was something completely new for you. Like you said, just take a chance. Why not? What surprised you and what came naturally?
The preparation surprised me. You think, okay, microphone, thoughts, let's go. It's like, oh no, this has to be organized. And I have to make sure my thoughts are organized. And I have to think about my co-host and what they might say and how to bounce off them. And what questions I might have for them. And then do it again. And finding more things to talk about. Because it's interesting, when you dive into a team really good, not much was going to change in 2 weeks. So it's like, okay, we probably can't talk about the Jazz again right now. So who else are we watching? That type of bit.
Yeah.
What came naturally was just the talking portion, honestly. I thought that it would be a little stiff or awkward, but I learned a lot about how to communicate through a podcast and building on what I had done before as a player and a coach, and just kind of understanding how to reach people and deliver the information in a way that hopefully can be digestible. That came a lot more naturally than I thought it would.
How did the podcast help you see the game differently?
Well, it makes you really reconsider certain thoughts. And so for me, it's like I have a thought that's a base. And then, okay, I have to challenge that thought somehow. And so I'm watching this team, not just with that thought, but okay, what are you? And so for me, I break down the regular season just as a whole wave. First half, I'm learning who you are. I'm learning what you do well, what you struggle with, what you're trying to do on offense, you're trying to do on defense. And I can kind of start to see the build up a little bit. And as the season goes on, I can tell, oh, okay, when this happens, this is how you react. Or this is a common theme as far as a flaw goes. Or this is a positive that you built on, or this is something you fixed as you've gone on. So that's one of those things where, because you have to say the words to an audience to a degree, you have to make sure that you are on point with what you're trying to say. Because if you sit and say, hey, the Phoenix Suns are bad, and then the Phoenix Suns are not bad, how are you going to now say the Phoenix Suns are not bad?
Yeah. You got to know your own game, know what you're talking about. So you've had a lot of experience video coordinating, coaching, podcasting. Now, SBC, what are you looking forward to this summer, and what do you plan on bringing to the table for these students?
A lot of experience, a lot of inspiration, and a lot of understanding. I think the beautiful part about SBC is just the amount of experience that you have around you, but you also are having this shared experience with other people, and you're able to build networking out that way. You can tell by the success of all the alumni that have gone through the program in different areas. So for me, it's about, I want you to learn something from me. I want you to ask questions, but I want to be able to teach you something from a different perspective and make you think and make you challenge maybe something you had thought before, or maybe you reconsider something else, but lay it out for you in a way that, okay, this is achievable. This person has had these thoughts that I had, or this person was in this space that I was in, and then they went on to do X, Y, and Z, and just kind of relate that way. But also, confirm and inspire and make sure people know, hey, you're on the right track.
Yeah, you're showing up. You're looking for those opportunities. And speaking of opportunities, like you said, when you graduated college, they weren't there, and now I feel like there's so much going on in the world. So these students have a slightly different out of college experience than you do, whether they're straightly out of college or just young adults looking to get into the sports industry. What do you think is the biggest challenge for people in that age group looking to get into sports now?
I would probably say understanding which part they want to get into or how to get their foot in their door. I feel like those feel like the two biggest challenges. Because I still to this day will get emails like, hey, I'm looking for X, Y, and Z. I want to be this. And my biggest question back is like, what do you want to do? Which part do you actually want to do? Like, do you want to do basketball? Do you want to do front office work? Do you want to be an agent? Do you want to do video work? Do you want to coach? And it's kind of just taking that idea and then filtering it, I feel like, is the difference sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's part of why SBC is, so helpful for people, is because it helps them figure out what they want to do. It exposes you to those opportunities. So is there a part of SBC, like either a major or a skill that you really want to focus on? I know you said inspiration and just helping people see it differently, see the game differently. What are you personally most looking forward to, though?
Me, it's like the scouting video.
Scouting video?
Just to be able to open people's minds to what they're seeing on the court and open the possibilities of what they can now apply it to. And like, I've always been like a big analogy guy. So like, I want to make sure people see more or learn how they can see more or understand how to watch the game differently to build their eyes up and build their knowledge up in a different way. And then understand, okay, now that I understand more of what I'm looking at, how do I apply it when it comes to scouting and watching players and evaluating talent and understanding what a fit is and what the context is for a player to where, okay, that's a lot of talent. Does that fit with what we do? How does that apply with us? Just kind of testing different boundaries is kind of what I'm thinking now.
What do you think is going to be the biggest takeaway for these students? I mean, a lot of people say it's the relationship building or just exposure to the industry. What are you excited for these students to get the sense of, as they enter this world of, the real world?
Excuse me. I'd probably say the networking aspect, being able to be exposed to so many different people, but also being able to get to know different people in different areas. I think that's a big key, especially in this day and age, to be able to have that exposure, but also put yourself out there and be able to ask questions to people and be able to learn and take that away and build on that once you leave. That, for me, I think is the biggest key.
How do you think this program would have made things in your life differently? Like if you had SBC when you were younger, what would you have looked forward to?
The whole thing. The whole thing. One, I probably would have had much more of an understanding of what is possible, as far as, it doesn't just have to be this. It doesn't just have to be coaching. It doesn't just have to be video. Because when I was back at that time, that was the big explosion of video coordinators to head coaches as a pipeline. So it was like everyone wanted to do that. But it's like, I wonder what it would have looked like if I had started my path in the front office, or if I had started my path purely in scouting, or something different had changed or shifted, or I had been able to showcase a different skill or learn a different skill. Maybe I was good at something I didn't know anything about, and it captured me. I think being able to kind of have that experience and opportunity would have been huge. So to your point about the exposure, you never know what something is going to trigger in someone's brain as far as who they are as a human and what they want to do.
Well, despite that, you've had an amazing career. So just looking back, what are you most proud of?
I'm proud of all of it, honestly. Like a specific moment or just like...
maybe just like an area of self-growth that you didn't expect or that you've just come a long way in.
To be honest, I didn't expect any of it. So the whole thing in totality was just like a fever dream, to actually sit and experience. Because when I was growing up, my dad was commentating games. And so I would call him and talk to him after games. And so probably the most proud moment outside of, going to the conference finals, the Grizzlies, becoming an assistant coach, finishing a playoff book by staying up all night. And then
those late nights.
Oh, yeah. And then getting the classic, this doesn't matter speech the next day. And I was like, could you have said that the next day? Like, it's fine. The biggest one was probably when I got to the point where my dad was calling me after our games in that flip-flop, and just being able to do that while he was still here and to kind of have that exchange. That's the proudest moment. Like no matter what you want to say, you can never take that part away from me. And then being able to grow in my self-belief, to have the confidence to execute and believe. And, I'm around legendary players, Marc Gasol, Mike Conley, Zach Randolph, Kevin Garnett, Darren Williams, Brooke Lopez, and just being Joe Johnson and being able to communicate with them just like humans and be able to coach them up. And that was probably like, wow, if I went back, I probably would have never thought I would have been able to actually execute and say these words, but managed to do it. So proud.
That is a full circle moment, growing up watching your dad and then him being able to do the same thing for you and calling you. So it's definitely something special. And just relationship wise, it's not so much about the game. It's like what you can do with your platform, with your career, And so looking forward, what's next for you? What are you thinking about now?
I'm thinking about doing a great job on this podcast and at SBC.
You're doing pretty good.
I am the worst future for, like, if I was a meteorologist, I would be so bad at it because I would just give you a one-day weather report.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just what needs to happen right now, that kind of thing.
One day at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Win the day.
One day. Okay, so maybe not future, but what skills are you looking to not master, but, get better over this next year and as you learn how to become a mentor to these people at SBC?
More understanding how and what they're looking for and how to help push them and understand their direction, if that makes sense. And this is mentor is a key word, but mentor comes with a responsibility. It's not just one thing to give information. How can you personalize it to that person and help them on their path the best way for them? That's probably the one thing I would look forward to working on.
Yeah. Excuse me. It's so important that they have someone like you, because no matter what opportunity you have in the field, like it means nothing if you don't have someone to show you the way. And like you said, kind of curate that learning process for you and like what you need to learn in a specific way, to get where you want to go, whether you know where you want to go or not. So look forward to seeing what you do on SBC. You'll be great. You don't need to be a futuristic 5-year in advance, just one day at a time. It'll all work out. But thank you so much for joining us today. And do you have any other things to add about either your experience or just looking forward? This experience is not just for the students, but it's like how you bring your own career path, your own years playing basketball, bringing that to them. So is there anything else you'd like to add that you're excited about?
The hands-on experience. And it's always great to be around other people who have different perspectives and have gone through different things, and you can reconnect with them or meet new people and understand more pathways, and just the engagement part for me. That's probably the biggest thing for me.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Steve. It was an amazing conversation. I loved learning about your experience, getting to know you, and I look forward to seeing you this summer.
We'll see you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of SBC Audio Experience with Stephen Jones. If you enjoyed hearing about Steve's inspiring story of breaking into the sports world as much as I did, please make sure to share this episode with your friends, like us on social media, and subscribe and leave a review. You can find the show notes at sportsbusinessclassroom.com/Stephen-Jones. Let us know if you listen, and if you enjoyed hearing the episode, tag us on your Instagram story at Sports Business Classroom. Text it to a friend and spread the news of the SBC Business of Basketball Immersive Experience. This episode is also brought to you by Hall Pass Media, a full-service marketing agency that specializes in brand consulting, event management, digital marketing, and creative design. For more information on Hall Pass Media, go to hallpassnetwork.com.